11 lives cut short, 6 survivors forever changed. So many families grieving tonight and a community wondering how this could have happened to us, not once, but twice. Hello, West Michigan. I'm Andy Dominiani, and welcome to our special Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall, Kalamazoo, Hope and Healing. We're glad you're here tonight. We're going to hear from law enforcement who rushed in to save lives on 2 tragic nights and who are working now to bring those responsible to justice. We'll also be talking with the family members of the victims who are working very hard themselves to carry on the names of their loved ones. And we'll talk with faith and community leaders about coping with loss and moving forward. But we begin tonight with a look back at how we got here.
Eastbound or westbound or north?
911. We need someone here.
Okay.
We need.
Are you over here? High Meadows.
I'm at the Kalamazoo Cracker Barrel, and there's been gunshots in a car.
City has one in custody, 1 weapon off of them.
11 lives lost. 2 mass tragedies in the same year in the same community.
Multiple biker is down. I'm going to need probably 2 or 3 units of light.
It's all almost too much to bear.
It's unbelievable, and I think just as a community, we're reeling from the disbelief of losing 5 more people.
I just wish that we had had more of an opportunity to maybe get our feet under us before we had to do it again.
So many West Michigan families will never be the same. Lives ripped apart, others nearly snuffed out.
I don't know that there could ever be an acceptable explanation, certainly not one that makes sense.
Please don't move. Please don't move. They coming, okay? Please don't move. We got the kids.
Not 4 months after an apparently crazed Uber driver gunned down 6 people and critically wounded 2 more during a random night of terror in Kalamazoo County on February 20th, an erratic pickup truck driver plowed down a group of bicyclists out for a Tuesday evening ride. 5 of the 9 died.
I think a lot of it hasn't sunk in yet. This was just a group of people out doing what they loved, and it was just an unfortunate end to a happy evening being out. It was a cool evening, nice ride, good pace that ended in tragedy. We'll never be the same because of it. But
sometimes the worst of circumstances brings out the best in people. The Kalamazoo community has come together many times this year, holding vigils, fundraisers, and rallies to show support, hoping for healing and praying for strength.
I think they'd be honored. They'd be surprised.
It's awful. Awful tragedy.
And these 2 tragedies activated dozens of first responders from multiple police and emergency agencies across Kalamazoo County. It took coordinated responses to protect the public, rescue the injured, and prevent further loss of life. Tonight, representatives from several branches of law enforcement are joining us to talk about the impact that these cases have had on them. Please welcome Kalamazoo County Prosecuting Attorney Jeff Getting, Kalamazoo County Sheriff Richard Fuller, Michigan State Police First Lieutenant Dale Hinz, Kalamazoo Township Police Chief Tim Burgoyes, and Kalamazoo Public Safety Deputy Chief Carrie Ann Thomas. Thank all of you for being here tonight. Jeff, I'd like to start with you because on the night of the mass shootings and then repeated on the night of the bike tragedy, it became your job to quickly assemble all the information you were getting from all of these agencies and make some very difficult decisions. Tell me how they worked together and how that benefited you and your office.
I'm really fortunate to have such great law enforcement here in Kalamazoo. The people that are here with us tonight, as well as all of the other agencies in Kalamazoo County, do a really good job of communicating with each other, communicating with me and my office, and making sure that we have all of the necessary information. Having them, I end up at the podium, but having them with me makes all the difference in the world.
Sheriff Fuller, you of course were at the scene of both of these as well. The threat was neutralized in the biking tragedy almost immediately. It took a little longer in the mass shooting situation. Critical incident debriefings are critical to you. Tell me what those are and how they help.
Well, we've created a CISM team is what it's called. It's Critical Incident Stress Management. And one of the things that we do is take all the responders and give them a debriefing within 24 hours. And then we hold a second debriefing, hopefully within 48 hours. And it gives everyone an opportunity to talk about what's bothering them in this incident or what they were part of, and then go home instead of having to try and deal with it once they get home.
Yeah, Lieutenant Hins, also you were at the scene of both of these as well, and I know that you're involved in the critical incident situations that Sheriff O was talking about. Talk to me about how the Michigan State Police played a role, especially in the mass shootings.
Well, the state police handled the Cracker Barrel shooting primarily, and so we pretty much handled that from start to finish at the scene, handling the crime scene, gathering evidence, sending that to our crime lab. At the bicycle tragedy, we were there pretty much for the reconstruction of that, the accident reconstruction.
And Chief Burgoyes, I know that you're involved in these as well, and it's very tempting, I think, for a lot of us to think, what's going on in this world and what's happening in Kalamazoo County? What next? I think it's very important to keep this in perspective. These two situations are outlying events and don't define us and don't accurately portray the crime rate here.
No, they don't, and I think that's the difficult thing. When you're in the moment and the emotions that happen with an event like this, you believe that that's just the way it is. I think it's important to note that if you look nationally, our homicide rate right now nationally is about the same as it was in 1960. Our violent crime rate is about the same as it was in 1970. Now, it doesn't seem that way. We have more media now. We have more media outlets, more time to fill. We have social media. We learn about things rapidly, and they are repeated over and over. And if you're plugged into that, it just a very natural reaction is to think that it happens all the time everywhere.
Deputy Chief Thomas, tell me a little bit more about how the agencies work together, especially when you have so many different crime scenes at once.
I think that's one of our strengths here in Kalamazoo County, that we have no jurisdictional borders. When types of incidents like these happen, we all gather together. We don't stop at any of our boundaries. We go where help is needed. And I think we also have to forget we have law enforcement sitting here, but we have all the first responders that responded that night. The paramedics, the firefighters, and they were all there these nights, and we all worked together. It didn't matter what agency you were for. We had a job to do, we had victims, and we're all here to help the community heal, no matter what our profession.
I'm so glad you said that, because communication with the public that you serve is critical to all of you and all of your officers. And this is for anybody, and please chime in. When you look at the community response to these tragedies, and the shock had hardly worn off from the first one, what are your thoughts?
One of the positives that has come out of this is the community response and the way that this has brought different people together, and we realize how intertwined we are, because we're all connected to the victims in each of these tragedies in different ways, but we all seem to be connected. One of the positives that has come out of this is the light that's been shined on these guys, on law enforcement, on my office, and the job that we do. This is what we do every day. They're responding to these types of incidents every day. We're prosecuting these kinds of crimes on a regular basis. And what the community is seeing as a result of these incidents is the professionalism that exists here in Kalamazoo.
We've seen the best of the community come out through this tragedy, and I'd encourage everyone out there to continue that. Make sure that you just be nice to your neighbor. Try to take that next step and just be a little bit nicer, a little more friendly to your neighbor. Just smiling at the person next to you at the stoplight can change their day, and that's what I encourage everybody to continue on with, that we've seen from these tragedies.
And we're hearing that from the citizens as well. I've had many people come up and tell a story about how they've decided to try to be more compassionate, or try to be more caring, or just say hello, or hold a door for someone. And I think as a community, we believe these are things that are going to make us improve.
Deputy Chief, life can change in an instant. I know this affects you personally as well as professionally, doesn't it?
I think it changes all of us. I think the whole community changes. Our first responders are surely affected, but they're also affected by the tragedies that happen every single day. And so we really have to be cognizant, and I think, like Lieutenant Hinn said, that as a community we've come together so much that you do need to be nicer, because it woke us all up that this can happen to anybody. I mean, the innocent victims, that we do need to know every moment's precious.
I think the other thing too is we tend to have a very short attention span. The news cycle is quick, our attention span is short. And it just pays to remember that. It pays to remember people process this in a different way. And people months down the road may be having problems when they didn't seem to have those problems up front. So being more concerned, being on the lookout for that among your own friends and neighbors, I think is very helpful.
Oh, all great points and wonderful advice. Thank you all so much for being part of this panel. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In just 2 nights, there were 17 people killed or critically wounded in these 2 tragedies. Tonight, our Amy Heimels takes a look back at the lives of the victims and how the survivors are trying to heal.
All this pain. Just shy of 49 hours ago, they were here with us.
Hundreds packed prayer vigils for the 9 cyclists hit by an erratic driver, 5 of whom were killed, all of them members of the Chain Gang biking group.
Larry was a cancer survivor and came around really well and was a great guy.
Larry Pollock and Tony Nelson, both active in their faith and the community.
Tony worked with college students and social justice issues to live better lives and help those who were not as advantaged as we are.
Because their hearts were so big that they cared. They truly cared for the parish community and the community at large.
Melissa Fevick Hughes, a loving mother of 2.
Yet her greatest and most important love was for her girls. She lived for them. She cherished them. They had fun together.
She captured many more hearts with her sweet disposition, her winning smile, her humility, her genuine care for others.
Friends of Deb Bradley lighting candles for a woman they say lit up all of their lives.
She was a lover of life, a lover of her family. She was so passionate. I'm telling you, I've never known another person like her.
Her friend Suzanne Sipple, who worked at the WK Kellogg Biological Station, was also on the ride that night.
I had the opportunity to see both Deb and Suzanne over the weekend, and both commented to me on how proud they were of Maddie and Lucas. And there's many things I can say, but I know they were so proud of their kids, and they were such good, kind people.
You make beautiful things.
The world was a better place with them, and the world is a worse place without them.
Steve Johnson is also a member of the Chain Gang. His wife Jennifer is one of the survivors. So is Paul Runnels, who had a long career in animal health care, most recently working for Zoetis. And Paul Gobble, a professional photographer and father, is also recovering.
I think a lot of it hasn't sunk in yet.
Survivor Sheila Jeske is home, healing from broken ankles, broken ribs, but most of all, a broken heart.
We'll never be the same because of it.
By the rivers of Babylon.
Our primary objective here is to surround those who were closest to these people with our love and our support and our prayers.
4 months earlier, 8 people were shot when a gunman went on a rampage through Kalamazoo County. 6 died. Stories of heroism are still emerging from the tragic night.
The mother, the victim in this shooting, to me was a hero. This person put themselves between the children and the shooter.
Survivor Tiana Carruthers, shot multiple times, is looking to her faith and her family for inspiration during her recovery.
I had a strong will to live because I told myself as I was laying there that I'm going to see my daughter go to her gymnastic classes. I'm going to see my sister walk that stage for graduation. I'm going to help her find prom dresses.
High five.
14-year-old Abby Koff is also making a miraculous recovery.
We were saying our goodbyes at that moment. I put my head on her chest and I told her I loved her. And I told her that our heart beats as one. And if she could feel my heart, that her should start. And within that 5 minutes, she started back up.
Thank you for saving my life. It means a lot to me.
Others were not so lucky. Barbara Hawthorne, or Grandma Barb as Abby called her, was a special education teacher and served in the Peace Corps.
Barbara was love.
Barbara's friend, Mary Jo Nye, had a long career in education and dedicated her life to literacy.
She just really made a difference in whatever community she lived in.
Mary L. Nye, Mary Jo's sister-in-law, was also killed that night.
Love of my life.
Their friend Judy Brown is also remembered for her love of her family and her cats. Her son tells us she was a caseworker for many years. Father and son, Rich and Tyler Smith, had plans to start an auto shop after Tyler's graduation.
Rich and Tyler, they were a lot alike. They both had huge hearts.
They were very loving. They were very caring.
We can't let how they passed away be what people remember.
These two tragedies have been so difficult and sad for all of us, but now imagine the close friends of the victims in whose lives there are gaping holes. And imagine the victims' family members, the ones who love them beyond measure, who are soldiering on in life now with broken hearts. Our hearts go out to them, and we want to help and empathize, but we don't truly understand. Tonight we're joined by family members of some of the victims, Lori and Emily Smith, the family of Rich and Tyler Smith, and Alexis Cornish, Tyler's girlfriend. Thank you all for being here. Also Barbara Hawthorne's nephew, Nate Hawthorne, and his wife, Shelley. We appreciate your bravery in being here, and we hope this will help in some way. Lori, I want to ask you a question first and foremost. As a parent, I can hardly get through this. And I'm going to ask you this, and it's going to sound simpleton, but how are you doing?
I get up every day, I praise God, and I look for how I can help others.
Has the community's response, Lori, given you any comfort?
Very much. It's, at first it was very overwhelming, and now it's very heartwarming. We just continue to get outpouring of support and help in whatever it is we happen to do, and even if we're doing nothing, and it's very heartwarming.
Emily, we're watching some video now of some of the reaction right after your father and brother were killed. And tell me what this has been like for you these last few months and how you're doing now.
I'm just now starting to realize that it's my new life, and it's just now becoming real. The past few months have been just a dream, and I thought, well, more of a nightmare, and I thought I'd wake up, but I didn't. And I really appreciate and I love all the community's, support and everything that they've done. I mean, I can't even name off all the things that people have done. I mean, just simple things like bringing dinner. People don't think about how much that actually helps, but when you're going through it all, you don't think about dinner.
We're glad to hear that it does. Alexis, talk to me about Tyler. What an impressive kid. And here sitting here with his mom and sister, but yeah, he would have graduated and his cousin graduated in his place. Talk to me about the Tyler you knew.
He was very outgoing, and he would always be there for me, whether it meant not hanging out with his friends, just to make sure I was okay. And he was very loving towards everyone and nice to everyone. And he was always willing to do what it takes to make his friends or family happy.
Nate, Barbara Hawthorne, by all accounts, was just a wonderful person. A teacher, an environmentalist, a theater lover, just a wonderful, sweet person. Talk to me about her.
We called her lovingly Crazy Aunt Barbara because she would always do, be the fun person. She would watch our kids, take our kids out and do fun things, and she was just a very loving person. And the number of people that have come up and said, "Oh, I met your Aunt Barbara," or "Oh, she was I met her at the casino," or just at the doctor's office. She made an impression on these people, and they've come up and told me that just these chance meetings had made an impression on them.
And Barbara was Grandma Barb, Shelley, too. Abby Kauffer, one and others, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We call her Aunt Barbara, and my children consider her to be essentially a grandma, even though we call her Aunt Barbara. But she also loved Abigail and Juliana very much as well, and called them her grandchildren, and spent so much time with them and loved them all and cared for them all as if they were her own. So they miss her dearly.
I bet they do. Now, Lori, how can we continue to help you? I know there's been a groundswell of support, which we've been happy to see and be part of, and I hope that's been helpful. But there will be a time when you're alone in your house and they're not coming home, and then it will hit you again and again and again. What can we do to ease that pain?
I think just remembering them for who they were. And as we try to figure out what's next, we'll figure it out. And for those people that knew Rich and Tyler, you know, we still want to talk about them. We still want to hear, you know, stories, and we'll still talk about them because their physical being might be gone, but their spirits are still here.
Great point. I think people might be afraid to bring up the subject, that it would be too painful, but of course, they're alive in your hearts. And Emily, tell me about Tyler's graduation in Mattawan.
That was probably one of the hardest days of my life, because he was there for me at my graduation, and we had his graduation in the same place that mine was, and he was the life of the party. I mean, he made everything. He made everyone laugh. He always had something silly, something to dance on, something, you know, he was truly, you know, a silly character. But the graduation, I mean, when everybody stood up, the whole theater stood up and did a round of applause when my cousin David accepted the diploma that the Mattawan schools had given. And, you know, he carried his cap and gown across the stage as if he was there, and I think that he was.
This has bonded you all together, hasn't it, Nate and Shelley? And you never wanted this to happen. You don't deserve this pain at all. But in a way, there have been some positive things to come out of it. Tell me about that.
Well, I just think that seeing all the events that have happened, even though we haven't been able to make all of them, like the Harley ride that I know that Lori was at, the run last night that they did from Gazelle Sports for Kalamazoo Strong. I mean, all of those, even though we might not be able to be there for the actual events, we know that they're going on. And so I think that helps us remember in a good way the effect that this has had on the community. And then it's almost like our loved ones are inspiring other people to be together. And I think that's probably the most positive effect that it can have on the community.
Lori, sadly this will happen to another mom. Do you have any words of advice? We never thought this kind of a tragedy would happen in Kalamazoo again, and look, it has.
I think at the onset, it's a struggle to breathe. And then day by day, you just do exactly what you have to do to get by. As the months pass and the nightmare becomes a reality, you just do what feels right in your heart, and you pray, and you take care of those that you need to take care of, including yourself. And you try to just embrace the community's love and support as much as you can. But there is no script. It's different for everyone. Whatever provides comfort at any given moment is going to be different for me than it is for someone else. It's a nightmare that I don't wish on anyone, and you just do what you have to do to get by. And the community support and love is really, really huge in moving forward.
And I imagine that you are living for them,
yes,
and knowing that they want you to be happy and not paralyzed with grief.
Right.
Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate your insight and your comments, and we are with you, and we will be here to help you. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, these tragedies have had a, of course, very profound impact on the people of West Michigan. News Channel 3's Kate Tillotson is in the newsroom sharing some of your comments coming in right now on social media. Kate?
Thanks, Andy. You know, maybe you've had to have difficult discussions with your kids about violence and loss, or maybe you yourself are having a hard time coping. We've started a discussion on our WWMT Facebook page, a place where you can leave your thoughts, share words of encouragement, or even post questions that you'd like us to ask some of our panel guests tonight. Roger says, I won't ride bicycles on the road anymore. It's disturbing about what happened. And Sandy says, as the mother spouse of family members who bike, I'm concerned by the attitude of many drivers toward people on bikes. It seems like many in the public are sadly unaware of the laws that protect bicyclists. This conversation is heating up, so we want you to be a part of it. If you'd like to weigh in on these two tragedies or share some of the ways that you and your family are coping, it might help someone else, join this conversation on our WWMT Facebook page. I'm also taking comments on my Facebook page and on Twitter. Now, coming up, we'll talk to faith leaders and with therapy experts as well as community leaders about all the support that's been pouring in for the victims and for their families. Right now, though, we want to take a look back at the many times the community has come together to heal.
We are in this together, Kalamazoo family. Hate will not win.
I think it's just beautiful to see like how many people and how many lives like him and his father impact.
We can't pretend that didn't happen. It becomes a part of who we are as a community. But it's not all we're about.
To those whose lives were so cruelly cut short.
I'm out here to show my support for not only the people who lost loved ones, but I'm also here to support the family of the young man who caused this.
Little piece of light in a time that's been very dark.
I think that's what people are doing the one thing they can do, which is support each other.
We try to make sense out of something that doesn't make sense.
It's a great deal to process.
I've been on that route hundreds of times and felt safe hundreds of times. I think that riding a bike is a pastime, love, and it's something that we should all continue to do in their memory.
I think as a community we need to come together and support the families, to support all those that are affected by this tragedy.
This is Kalamazoo. This is who we are.
Let's go do it again, and we'll finish the ride for those fallen, and we'll finish the ride for those that are still in the hospital who can't be here.
We can't allow the evil and stupidity and ignorance of those that decide to harm folks through their actions stop us from living our lives.
We are Kalamazoo, and we are Kalamazoo strong.
You know, we all want to think the world is a good place where bad things can happen, but after back-to-back tragedies, it can be very tempting to view the world as a cold and dangerous place where good things can happen. We shouldn't think that way. We know that healing takes time, and grieving may take the most. Tonight, we brought in some experts to talk about the grieving process. Welcome to Joyce Pines, Clinical Director of Adult Services at the Elizabeth Upjohn Community Healing Center. Also Bill Wenger, a Borges behavioral health psychologist. Pastor Paul Fazio from North Park Reformed Church, and Pastor James Harris from Trenches Community Church. Thanks to all of you for being here. Thank you. Such a difficult thing to talk about and for us to wrap our minds around, Joyce. The grieving process is complex and can't be hurried up. And a lot of us are thinking, we're so sad and we're so uncomfortable by this, even if we didn't know the victims. Can you explain that?
Grief is a tough area to deal with. We kind of live in a society where we're supposed to be okay all the time. And the truth of the matter is that's not the way it works. And when we lose a loved one, or even when a community is rocked by the tragedies as Kalamazoo has been this year, we can lose our bearings because we don't understand. We don't understand, if we didn't know them, why it's affecting us so much. And we struggle because a lot of times we don't think about grief until it hits.
Yeah.
And we're surprised by the anger that often accompanies it. There's depression. Sometimes we find ourselves in kind of a bargaining position. If I did this, can I make sure that would never happen? If I promise to do this, will this get better? And sometimes we deny it for a long, long time. And that's one of the reasons why we can't say that there's a time limit to it, because everybody's different and everybody has to find their own way through it. So there's not a, okay, you should be okay in a week or a month or 6 months. It's different for every single person, and each person has to find their way through this.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll never be okay.
Sometimes.
You'll live life with a broken heart, and that I think is the most difficult thing. Bill, in your role as a psychologist, I know you talk to a lot of children, and I have young children. And these victims, in every case, Bill, were doing nothing wrong. In fact, they were doing everything right. They were out for a bike ride. They were looking at a car. They were going out to dinner and a show. And this happened to them. How do we explain that there's just pure evil in the world to our kids, or is that the right thing to say?
I don't think that's the right thing to say. Blame is often a process that will cause the recycling of the pain and the upsetness and the fear. With grief, I think parents have a role to bring their children forward in this process. And communication between parents and their children is critical. Often, the parents are not taking care of themselves first. Once they have done that, they need to reach out, communicate over and over again. Lots of misinformation comes home from school that needs to be questioned and made right. Also, the age-related communication between a 5-year-old and a 14-year-old is different.
Yeah.
So the grief process is a responsibility that I think parents have in dealing with their children.
And the question, could this happen to me, Mom or Dad? What's the answer? Well,
I think reassuring them. One of our law enforcement people talked about the reduction in victim crime. And since 1993, it's 2/3 of what it used to be. But because of the media, because of kids at school talking about it, it just gets a life of its own and goes day after day after day. I am really proud how the community has stepped up and provided the closure through churches, balloons being let loose, the race from what was it, yesterday or today, from Gazelle.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday. Paul, a lot of people rely on faith in these kinds of situations, and they're thankful they have it. You knew the Smith family, you know the Smith family, and you've been involved in many of the remembrances for Richard and Tyler. Tell me how this has affected you and your congregation.
I can remember that day like it was yesterday because I woke up to the news reports, and I thought the worst thing about it was that Dalton lived about a mile from the house. And as I drove to church that morning, I thought, oh, but then I found out after church that it was Tyler and Rich. And I had to explain that to my 17-year-old son.
Yeah.
And again, it's a process like we've already heard. And it's a process of grieving that, you know, teenagers are quiet. They want to talk about it their own way. The candle lighting, the balloon launching, the lantern launching, all that stuff was cathartic and kind of led up to the funeral service, memorial service, and kind of the rebuilding of things. And I'll tell you, I'm so proud of the Smith family and watching them tonight, how far they have come. And a big part of that is they believe that God has a presence in all of this. They're not sure what. They're still asking that question. They're still kind of walking through the valley, but they're trusting. And that's a huge piece of it, to have that, at least that rock in the midst of all the uncertainty. So it's been a productive and a healthy journey, but that faith has been a real anchor to them.
Now, James, a lot of people will question their faith and question God in these kinds of situations because it is so unfair. What would your advice be to those who are really thinking, boy, this is a terrible world and there's not much oversight?
I mean, we do live in a terrible world, and I mean, that's obvious with these types of tragedies happening all over, you know, our world. You know, I would just, you know, say in that, man, first of all, I just have to reiterate about the community support. Yes. You know, that's just been awesome how we rally around one another, you know, when things like this happen. But also, I really feel like, you know, in the midst of a tragedy, you have victims, and then you have the one that actually committed the crime, you know, and it's important for us, I think, to forgive, not to forget, but to forgive and not allow unforgiveness to manage, you know, our future, you know, because that can be heavy on you when you're walking in unforgiveness. You know, it can be a burden. But if I have support around me, you know, that can really help us, you know, overcome the stress, the depression, you know, and the grief.
Joyce and Bill, this hits home for all of us because we're imagining, God forbid, this should happen to our family or our friend. We're not equipped to deal with this kind of grief, and it's very hard on a person. And there are places to turn for help, and I'm wondering if you could help me understand when we should seek that help.
Well, I would say anytime that you're feeling overwhelmed, that you're finding it hard to get up in the morning, that or that you're finding that you're very angry all the time and irritable and lashing out at the people who care about you. There are grief support groups in the community. I believe the Area Agency on Aging, you can contact them. Some of the hospitals, they'll get you to the right places. You can even look online. Some of the psychotherapists in the community, counselors, they often will sponsor grief support groups. Just feel free to reach out. Individually, certainly my organization, Community Healing Centers, is more than happy to reach out and help. On our website, we've even posted direct access to my line. We'd be happy to try to find a counselor for you if you wish to talk about it. It's really important that you keep talking about it, that you don't just try to bottle it up and forget it, because you won't.
If you pretend it didn't happen, and I think there are families out there that are trying to protect their children. If you pretend it didn't happen, those children don't have a pathway towards healing and acceptance. And your children may end up with stomach problems, can't sleep, actual psychiatric symptoms that are best handled by parents initially. But if your children are still showing concern and fear 4 to 6 months after our tragedies have occurred, then professional help really ought to be sought.
James, you mentioned forgiveness, and I'll pose the same question to you. Paul, tell me how important you think it is to forgive the person who has wronged you, and in this case, taken family members or friends.
I think, you know, James hit on the head. In order to go forward as a community, there's got to be some forgiveness. I liked what was said by law enforcement officials about, you know, shoveling somebody's sidewalk, saying good morning, taking that risk to make a difference. I think to forgive at some point, to again move beyond, is crucial to healing and looking at a possible future. If not, I think we talked about this months ago, then these tragedies win. And then it stays this potential dark place. And it's not. There's great people out there, like the families we've already seen who have been impacted. They're great people. And, you know, they'll move forward, and we'll move forward as a community.
Yeah, and these are Christian principles, James. Do unto others and be kind to your neighbor.
Definitely,
and I think that we can all learn from what we've witnessed in the aftermath of these tragedies.
Yes, sir, yeah. You know, while Paul was talking, I was just thinking either, you know, because I think all of us have experienced some type of tragedy in our lives, you know, and I think perspective is everything. Either I can take on the victim mentality, or I can take on the victor mentality. And I just see individuals in our community taking on the victor mentality, and they're going to use this opportunity, this tragedy, to really help somebody else. Right. You know, so just like we say, we're going to be stronger as a result of this. You know, so again, I'm just so proud of the direction that our community is going and how we're handling it.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, Joyce, Bill, Paul, James, thank you all very much for coming on. I think it's been very, very helpful too.
Thank you.
We want to go back to Kate Tillotson in the newsroom now, sharing more community response that's been coming in. Kate.
These two tragedies have drawn on the resources of multiple jurisdictions and agencies and have impacted multiple community groups. Tonight, some of the leaders of those groups are sharing their thoughts with us. Paul Selden, the Director of Safety for the Kalamazoo Bicycle Club, says the outpouring of community support has been inspirational. He says, quote, "Your support is helping to heal, giving us hope by reminding us that we have within us the power to turn the darkness into light." He goes on to say we can all work toward positive changes in policy, legislation, funding, infrastructure, crash prevention technology, insurance, regulation, education, and awareness building. It will take many efforts, not just one, toward the goal of saving lives on into the future. Cooper Township Supervisor Jeff Sorensen says, as our community continues to heal from the terrible wounds that we've endured, we should continue praying for God's peace and comfort for the losses all have suffered. He goes on to say the Kalamazoo community is strong in faith, love, and resources. May God bless all the families that have endured the loss of a loved one and bless the survivors as they continue to heal. And let us not forget the first responders that give of themselves so unselfishly every day to keep us safe. Last night, a weekly run was dedicated to raising funds for the Kalamazoo Strong organization. We talked to some participants there about why it was important for them to get involved.
We just wanted to come out and support people because it's just such an emotional time, and we just want to be any support that we can for the family that have lost people.
Really deeply affected me. I ride that route all the time. What it says to me is bad stuff is going to happen, but we're going to stick together, and we're going to get through this together.
Sharing some more of your responses on social media, Roger, who we heard from about 15 minutes ago, says, "I won't ride bicycles on the road anymore." And Sandy says, as the mother and spouse of family members who bike, I'm concerned by the attitude of many drivers toward people on bikes. It seems like many in the public are sadly unaware of the laws that protect bicyclists. And this is a new comment in from Andrew, who says, I intend to continue riding the streets of Kazoo. We stay strong here and keep doing what we love. We want to encourage you to share your thoughts on these tragedies online. You can join this conversation on our WWMT-TV Facebook page. We are also on Twitter. Andy, back to you.
All right, Kate, thank you. While West Michigan grieved for the victims in these tragedies and their families, people also really banded together, leaning on each other for support and also offering tens of thousands of dollars in donations to help those who truly need it. Tonight, we're talking to community leaders about those efforts. We're joined by Kalamazoo Mayor Bobby Hopewell, also Barbara Cahill, Board President of Kalamazoo Strong, and Tom Vance, Director of Marketing Communications for the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. Thank you all very much for being here. And Bobby, I'll start with you. And I've been watching you and your reactions to this, and I know you take this all very personally, as do I. Back-to-back tragedies in this city is nothing we ever bargained for. It isn't fair. But it must make you feel good to see how the city's reacted.
Well, I think these incidents are always about how we come together and really take care of our community. An incident, 2 or 3, tragic and horrendous, we've got to be there always to support families, and we do that. We always have to be there for each other when we're struggling with this, and we do that. It's all about how we come together, how we support each other, how we react to tragedy. And we don't want any more. I'm not sure this community can take a lot more, but know that we will always be here for everybody.
We're really trying to de-emphasize, Bobby, I think, the suspects in these cases,
sure,
and the crimes themselves, and focus more on the victims and the families and the community and the rallies. And I'd like us to be known more for that.
Yes, absolutely. If you see we gave Tiana Crothers an award the other night just because of her heroic efforts to save those children. I mean, that's what we have to hang on to through the sorrow and the sadness, all those moments of greatness of our community, our first responders, our families, Kalamazoo Strong, and certainly organizations like the Community Foundation and United Way coming together, Battle Creek Community Foundation, to really support everyone in this community.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Barbara, talk about the community reaction to Kalamazoo Strong, which is new and was formed right after the mass shootings in February.
That's correct, Andy. You know, Kalamazoo Strong was created out of the mass shootings in February, and our focus is really on disaster philanthropy. Our goal is to be there for the members of the community when they're facing life-altering situations, whether it be through fundraising or through community outreach programs. So we have a lot of things that we've already accomplished, but that we're working towards as we grow.
Can you tell me more about what we have already accomplished?
Absolutely. So from the mass shootings, we have worked alongside the Help Now Foundation and have raised some money for the victims and survivors of the 220 event. We are honoring those victims and survivors at an upcoming Growlers event on tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there's a huge thing that I can tell you a little bit more about in a bit. But from the cycling event, there has been an outpouring of support from not only the community here in Kalamazoo, but also across all the cycling communities around the world. There has been over $15,000 donated to our crisis fund for the victims and families of the cycling tragedy. And we're looking to we're partnering with the advocates, the Victim Advocates Group, to get those donations dispersed to those families quickly.
Yeah, the worst times, Tom, often bring out the best in people. The Kalamazoo Community Foundation is partnering with other agencies for the Help Now Fund. Now, tell me what the Help Now Fund is.
Well, the Help Now Fund was a regional response to the shootings, and it started with a very generous donation by the Kellogg Company to the Battle Creek Community Foundation. And the next day, the United Way of Battle Creek and Kalamazoo Region and the Kalamazoo Community Foundation were all talking together and realized we didn't want to duplicate any efforts. And so the three of us formed Help Now Fund, which has been providing 3 layers of support, really: direct support to the families, capacity building to nonprofits to help those families, and then long-range solutions, working with the community to prevent violence in the future.
And the Help Now Fund will be around in perpetuity.
Well, not really. We're hoping to put ourselves out of business.
Oh.
With the long-term help, we're hoping to donate, to distribute the rest of the money that's been brought in.
I should say Kalamazoo Strong will be around forever. I'm hoping that this sort of is
we will be around forever, but I hope we don't have to enact anymore anytime soon. Yes, we have a lot of other outreach programs, from like a crisis closet and a career counseling program that will be focused more on community and helping those members, either enhance their job interviewing skills and resume building skills from a career program. And then from our crisis closet standpoint, if there is an event where a community member is facing where they've lost their home in a fire or anything like that, we have gently used clothes or housewares and books and supplies to help them get back on their feet.
Bobby, I think a lot of folks in the city, of course, take their cues from you. When you're calm, we're calm. When you're angry, we're angry. And certainly you've been very angry about this, understandably. What makes me mad is that the victims in all of these situations were doing everything right.
Right.
They were out biking on a beautiful night. They were shopping. They were going out to dinner and a show. What's your message to folks in Kalamazoo who thought this was a safe place to live and are now questioning that?
Well, I would submit to you that every community, no matter where you are, there's something that happens that is negative at times. And we have just been hit tremendously with so many sad and negative events. I think if you've lived in this community as we have, we've created a life. We have families, we have friends, we're involved. We know what this community is. We knew that before February, we know it after February. We knew that before what happened this month, and we know it still now. And I think that's what we have to concentrate on, that no matter what things happen in this world, unfortunately, and sad things and horrendous things, and we please no more. But this is a great community, and if you look at these incidents, they didn't just happen in our city. Richland Township and Oshimo and Cooper Township. This is truly a community impacted beyond the borders of a city, but all of us. And I think that we just have to embrace what we know is true about Kalamazoo. Crime rates are down, but we still are going to always have situations and incidents that happen. A cyclist was hit just this week.
I saw that.
But then we've got to think about how are we taking care of our roads? How are we finding ways to make the streets safer? That's part of the role of government. And it's a struggle, but these are the things we have to do.
And there's really no room for apathy in all this.
Absolutely.
Everybody's opinions are needed, and everybody should take action in one way or the other. Barbara, talk about how folks who are watching this at home can become part of Kalamazoo Strong.
Absolutely. We are a fully volunteer organization, so we really encourage people to
You
try
find jobs, huh?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So we welcome anybody that is willing to come and volunteer. They can go to our website at www.kalamazoostrongorganization.org, and there's a form in there they can fill out and come and volunteer at some of our community outreach programs, or even volunteer to be a part of our board. We do have a couple board positions still open that we're looking to fill, and we welcome any help that we can get from the community.
And as a way of motivating people, Tom, what would you describe as the primary focus of Help Now and in the ways that they really do help the victims and the survivors?
Well, Help Now Fund was trying to honor donor intent, and we were very intentional about making sure that people's money was either restricted to individual families or all the families as a together, or to nonprofits in the community to help with this. And so we've made an impact on all of those levels so far, and we're continuing to work on long-term solutions. But something I wanted to mention, because you know, when people think of Kalamazoo, we're also proud of this area. And one thing that's come from these tragedies, we've become a model, I think, in the nation for people to see how communities can respond. The community foundation that's supporting the Orlando area contacted the Battle Creek Community Foundation and our foundation to find out how the whole Help Now thing came about and how we executed it. And that was also, this collaboration was also a tribute to the already established relationships that our two community foundations had with the United Way here in the community. And during a crisis isn't when you want to build collaboration. You have to have collaboration already in place, and our community, I think, has proven that.
Absolutely. Now, Bobby, we were talking with first responders earlier, and you know, we're always aiming for better police communication with the public. That really is the key, I think, to any successful community. They did a bang-up job on both of those occurrences. They really worked together very well. They neutralized the threat. I'm sure that you're very proud of those folks.
I am proud of all of them, having been a paramedic myself working in these streets, and I've talked to a number of the paramedics that have been involved. None of these incidents are simple. We're trained as EMS personnel and as public safety personnel that when you have a mass incident and you have triage that happens and all of these things, you sort of do a sorting. Hospitals receive patients in a certain way. These incidents, there were so many folks on scene so quickly, having to coordinate all of those individuals, having to determine who was going to be transported, all those pieces. This was not a simple puzzle. And then having multiple calls about incidents that spread throughout multiple hours in regards to what happened in February, the shooting, and then arriving on the scene where you have 9 people injured. Not simple. And we can there's always going to be that you know, quarterbacking, but truly we are blessed with public safety personnel that know how to respond and take care of this community. We also always have challenges, opportunities to improve, but they are out there every day working really, really hard.
They truly are. And we also heard from the family of Richard and Tyler Smith, some family members of Barbara Hawthorne, and I know, Bobby, that you've been communicating with the victims and survivors as well. What is your message to them as we look to the future?
You know, it's such a hard thing. I know that I could never put myself in their place. Just knowing that we are going to be here for the long run. This is not something that we're going to forget about or not going to be there for them. I just want to make sure they're reaching out, that they're connecting in any way, shape, and form. I was able to see some of the family in the room a little earlier, and I know that there's still a healing process. So we have to give them space, but we also have to be open if they need us.
And Kalamazoo Strong, listen, I've been impressed as well by what I've seen and what you've been able to do. And
Thank you.
I really encourage everybody to get involved in both these organizations monetarily or volunteer your time. Yes. And tell me a little bit more, Barbara, before we go about the Growlers game, which is tomorrow, so we can get behind it.
Absolutely. So the game is nearly sold out. They have partnered with us as a result of the February 20th mass shooting, and we created this Kalamazoo Strong evening. And so proceeds from ticket sales are going to come to the organization and then be dispersed to some of the victims and families of the February 20th event. But since the cycling accident recently occurred, They have implemented a silent auction where we have secured numerous donations from local businesses, and it will be happening throughout the entire game. And the proceeds of the silent auction will go to the families of the 9 cyclists. And in addition, they really went above and beyond and partnered with Zoo City Cycle to get a bike that will be at the game, and we'll have a rider who will be riding the bike the entire game, where people who are visiting, the ball field can go and make pledges for however many miles that the biker rides throughout the game. And that money will go to the families of the cycling tragedy.
Is it a stationary bike?
It is a stationary bike.
Are you going to do that, Bobby? That sounds like something you could really get behind.
Come on.
We'll see if the invitation comes.
There you go.
Well, I can make that happen.
Yeah, I'm sure you could.
Pull a few strings. All right, listen, thank you so much all for coming. Kalamazoo Mayor Bobby Hopewell, Barbara Cahill from Kalamazoo Strong, and Tom Vance from the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. We appreciate your help, and we're looking forward to helping you help others. Thanks so much. We want to go back to Kate Tillotson in the newsroom now, sharing more community response. Kate.
Andy, we are continuing to hear from our viewers about these tragedies and how they've impacted their lives. Sharing some more responses from viewers on social media, we got a really good one from Bill, who lives in Richland. He says, I knew several people in the bicycle accident. Some are healing, others are no longer with us. I rode bikes myself and continue to do so. I've been through several emotions, sadness, anger, reflection, questions with no answers. I can't imagine what the riders and past rider families are going through. And Terry writes, trust in God, seek Him, pray, and keep your eyes looking up and fixed. We want to encourage you to continue this conversation, to continue sharing your thoughts on these tragedies online. You can join in on our WWMT Facebook page. We're also on Twitter. Andy, back to you.
All right, Kate, thank you, and thank you for joining us. We do want to take a look back one more time at all of the ways this community has come together, leaning on each other for healing and lifting up the families of the victims and the survivors.
We are in this together, Kalamazoo family. Hate will not win.
I think it's just beautiful to see how many people and how many lives him and his father impact.
We can't pretend that didn't happen. It becomes a part of who we are as a community. But it's not all we're about.
To those whose lives were so cruelly cut short. I'm out here to show my support for not only the people who lost loved ones, but I'm also here to support the family of the young man who caused this.
Little piece of light in a time that's been very dark.
I think that's what people are doing the one thing they can do, which is support each other.
We try to make sense out of something that doesn't make sense.
It's a great deal, the process.
I've been on that route hundreds of times and felt safe hundreds of times. I think that riding a bike is a pastime, love, and it's something that we should all continue to do in their memory.
I think as a community we need to come together and support the families, to support all those that are affected by this tragedy.
This is Kalamazoo. This is who we are.
Let's go do it again, and we'll finish the ride for those fallen, and we'll finish the ride for those that are still in the hospital who can't be here.
We can't allow the evil and stupidity and ignorance of those that decide to harm folks through their actions stop us from living our lives.
We are Kalamazoo, and we are Kalamazoo strong.
Anyone who's been in Kalamazoo long knows these two tragedies are not the first to hit this area, and they likely won't be the last. But it's how we respond to these tragedies that truly defines us. As long as we lean on each other, as we've learned, there really is hope in healing. For all of us here at News Channel 3, thanks for joining us for this special Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall. We'll be posting this entire discussion on WWMT.com. For now, we want to leave you with the faces of the lives lost and those injured as we continue to pray for their recoveries. Good night.